In 2042, I'm gonna stand right here and be like, you fucking idiots still do social media? Day trading attention means that you do not put anything on a pedestal. I have no romance to social, to Google, to Facebook, to TikTok, to myself, or anything I've done prior to my career. I care about today, right now, and what is overpriced and underpriced behavior to make the thing that I want to happen, happen. So as of this moment, organic social media creative is #1 most important thing in marketing today. They will continue to leave opportunity on the table. And I tell you, there's not an organization in the Fortune 5000 selling stuff that has organic social media as #1 on their list. Meanwhile, every business that's 5,001 down, it's the only thing they believe in. It's why they're growing, period.
Attention is the #1 asset.
Morning. I've been really concerned about our business world getting soft, and I can fully confirm that I just had my tipping point moment. If we're doing happy hours at noon on a Monday, we're pretty fucked. So I'm pretty close to retiring. It's been a nice run. Loved working with so many of you. In this time slot that I have, I'd love to go Q&A as much as possible. So I'll yap here for 10 or 15 minutes, but I'd love the majority of this to be Q&A, because the point of what I have to talk about here is not overly complicated to anyone in this room. I think it's been overly complicated for bigger brands to execute on. More so than the thesis. I mean, the concept of day trading attention, which is what I need in my next book, is pretty much what I've been doing my whole life. It's so fun to be at Google because when I think about my career and what set up the precursor to us building VaynerMedia and what is absolutely happening in marketing communications today, when I was running my dad's wine store in New Jersey in the mid-90s, in 91, 2, 3, 4, when I was really a kid and had big dreams, it was very clear to me that I was gonna open up as many liquor stores as I possibly could around the country and build what I used to call the Toys R Us of wine when I was 15. And then obviously I had an incredible moment in 1994 where I saw the internet and literally hearing cuckoo, that sound changed the complete course of my life. And literally, it's crazy that you brought that up, and I haven't started a talk with this story in a long time, but AOL was the first place I went. And I don't know, for anybody over 45 in here, the kids are gonna really laugh at this. Like, I was scared to leave AOL and hit that World Wide Web button, because that seemed like, oh, that's crazy out there. This is cozy in AOL land. And within the first hour of being on the internet and being on AOL, I found message boards, and within that first 20 minutes, I found both wine and baseball card boards, and literally within the first 2 hours of my life being on the internet, I'm like, oh my God, this is it. Like, literally within that night, I was like, I don't need to open 1,000 stores. This is what I'm gonna do. And what happened next is the framework of what I want to talk about and the argument that I want to have with our industry. When I say our industry, I'll call it the Fortune 5000, from private equity backed brands all the way to the Fortune 500. I believe, as we stand here this morning, that we are wasting an incredible amount of effort, money, media dollars, and creative dollars on trying to make the thing happen. And I think the chasm of how big it is dramatically bigger than this room, this building, this industry believes it to be. And so the concept of day trading attention is very simple, which is marketing, as many of us know, has been slow in its prior world, right? From client brief to agency sitting on it for weeks and weeks and months and months and months to then doing something. I believe that we are now in a world where this is happening every minute, let alone every hour, and how good we are at storytelling, consideration, actual reach versus potential reach, and all those things really matters. And so back to that story and why I'm so happy that we're doing this here. For me, first, the biggest point of day trading attention was having a website versus trading on a retail store and a catalog. In the wine business, it was all have a store, have a catalog, and then the big thing, the fastest thing, was the Wednesday dining section of the New York Times, doing full page ads once a week in that place. Having a website was my first arbitrage. My next one, which was substantial for me for a decade, was email marketing. Again, a lot of young heads in here, but when I was email marketing in 1996, first I was sending as many emails as humanly possible because I was completely convinced in 1996 that email would eventually not be free. It was so crazy to me how effective it was in selling stuff. I'm like, they're gonna charge for this shit eventually. Let me get as many of these out as possible. And so that emailing day to day versus making a catalog or even once a week ad was so much faster. I was getting to consumers quicker. I was getting feedback loops faster. The next two completely changed the course of my life. The first one was buying Google AdWords the day they came out, when it was 5 cents a click on the floor before it went to 10 cents pretty quickly within the first year. And literally I owned the term wine for 5 cents a click for weeks before anyone bid me up. And once it got to 20 cents, I was like, this is fucking outrageous. This is so expensive. And really one of the great mistakes of my entire career was not even understanding the concept of CAC and LTV and ROAS. Like, I was just doing natural business stuff, and literally when some of the words got to like 50 cents and $1, I thought it was too expensive because I wasn't looking at the math well enough to understand. And even though I milked Google AdWords in the early 2000s really strong, I left a lot of juice on that fruit. And that actually has sat with me pretty heavy since. My great growth on AdWords and email in the early 2000s, but not getting as much growth out of it as I could have, drives me very seriously today. It has really framed the way I think of as a marketer, because that's why I get so loud and go so hard when a new TikTok comes, or why over the weekend I'm talking to my team about air chat. Whether it works or not is irrelevant, whether it becomes TikTok or it has the fate of Social Cam or Peach or Vero or all the other things that have come along and had a week or month or two. The underpriced nature of the attention while you're on it is quite remarkable for that period of time. And if you don't understand it, if you don't know the nuances, when I look at this room and have a very good understanding of who's here, the delta between being an A+ student at this skill and being a B student is everything. There's so many of us in here, depending on channel, depending on platform, depending on tactic and marketing, that sit in this room as an A+ in something and a C- in something else. And that's all of us, me included. To me, the problem is, in the current state of the industry we're in, I think most people are B and C and D students in the most important thing, and A+ students in things that are now overpriced and not as valuable. And then that is the delta. And then finally, the real tipping point that leads me to even standing here in my career was on February 20th, 2006, less than a year after it came out, I started a show on YouTube making wine videos, and that obviously changed the course of my career. And that was the first time in my career, because that's now 2006. I've been really running the business day to day since 98, but really at the kitchen table with my dad since 92. And so let's call it, that was 14, 12, 10 years into my business career. And for the first time in marketing, I understood that you didn't have to spend dollars, media dollars, to actually get sales. It was the first time I was affected by organic creative that had no media spend behind it, truly driving the sales of my business. And that became the formula and the precursor to what we are here today. And so what I really want to talk to all of you about, because I think the rest of the day, you're going to get incredibly detailed by, yes, one of the true companies in the world that has many variables on underpriced attentions. Shorts is underpriced. YouTube pre-roll long form video should own the television market, the television commercial market. It doesn't. There's many reasons why. I was here a couple weeks ago stating my case why I think it has a lot to do with the incentives that the holding companies have and where the money's actually made. But if your life depended on it and you had to make a 30 or 60 or 90 second video to sell something, and you really had to spend a lot of money to make it happen, and the maximum amount of sales really dictated the outcome that you're looking for, you would never, ever not consider the YouTube products on proper YouTube. Forget about YouTube TV for a second. YouTube proper, or OG, or whatever the fuck you guys are calling it now, is the only platform where many people watch at scale. The amount of minutes of classic YouTube consumption is extraordinary. Many of you have your parents, not you, forget about you, your parents consuming an extraordinary amount of YouTube Classic on their televisions. And because of the nature of how that pre-roll works, if you actually knew how to make a video that actually worked on that platform, which is never, and I mean ever, in the form of what you would conceive as a commercial, or as we know as a commercial. If you were to make a video that understood how to do its thing in the first second before the actual video that that person wanted to watch, or in the middle of the video that that person watched, if you knew how to make a video that understood what needed to happen in the first second of that video to make them watch the next 2 minutes, you would sell more stuff than any other video in any connected TV. And I mean, the fact that there's money still being put into traditional television, network and cable, only speaks to how fucked up our industry is. There is no logic. Do I think some people see commercials? Of course I do. Of course people see them. But how many for the price associated with our buy? The concept of day trading attention isn't that anything is dead. You can run a print ad. I would buy full page ads in the Wall Street Journal today, every day, if they were $800 a page. This is not an argument that things are dead. This is not an argument of anything other than, do you care about the price associated with the thing you're doing to create the outcome in business that you're doing? It's as simple as that. And we have an extraordinary chasm, and it's been getting wider and wider, of underpriced attention and overpriced attention. The underpriced attention is the thing that I probably have the most passion about, which is, until our industry and our platforms fully get behind the concept of the importance of organic social media in today's environment, I think that we will continue to have the missteps on the creative side associated with all marketing funnels, right? I think the punchline is, I think everyone here probably understands at this point that you could have anyone's and everyone's attention. You could have all 8 billion people on Earth's attention in a 30-second video, but if the creative isn't right, you're not gonna achieve the goal, right? I always scream my belief about Super Bowl being the most underpriced ad in marketing, which I continue to believe. I don't believe, even in our best day trading, and Vayner is obsessed with this at scale, I don't believe we on our best day can get 140 million Americans to watch 30 seconds of a video for $8 million. It's just too hard. As great as Google and Meta and TikTok, like, you just can't get it done. So Super Bowl as a media buy is the best ad opportunity in the marketplace. Two problems. When you buy from CBS or Fox a Super Bowl spot, oftentimes they tie in a bunch of horse shit with it, and all of a sudden it's not 8, it's 50 million. Two, even if you can get it for 8 because you buy it smart and you wait for that perfect moment where all the upfront buys are bought and there's still some inventory and you buy it right, even if you do that, if your 30-second video doesn't hit, it becomes incredibly overpriced. Because you know that video is gonna cost money, the production, and especially if you do it classic, the agency fees a lot, the production fees a lot, the talent you put is a lot, and it becomes very expensive, and all of a sudden you're in for 12 million and you get $1 million in value. On the flip side, if your creative crushes, you get 30, 40, 50, 60 million value. I think the one, and I think there's enough on this on the internet if you want to dig into this, I think Squarespace is the really interesting company to follow on what they've done on this over the last 15 years. They've done, I think, 11 or 12 Super Bowl spots in 20 years, or 8 and 12, just a lot. And they'll tell you year by year, sometimes it's the single best thing they did, and some years it's completely the worst thing they did. And it goes back to the biggest argument I will always have to the end of time when it comes to comms and marketing, which is the creative is the variable of success. However, our industry is delusional about creative. Our industry puts production value and 1950s Mad Men DNA on a pedestal in 2024. We literally continue to have the industry write about TV commercials as the ad of the week in a world where 90% of our society could give a shit. I'm literally leaving here right now and going down to Miami for this conference with a bunch of CMOs, and 80% of the talks will still be about TV-centric or brand positioning or a lot of academia that no longer exists with actual consumer realities. So, you know, what I'd like to spend the majority of the rest of my talk on is the questions or concerns of the collective group in here, the things that aren't clear to someone on this basic framework, which is the following. I believe that the brands and individuals, companies and organizations that will win going forward will understand that you are doing advertising every single day and that you are putting out meaningful ads every single day. And those meaningful ads, my friends, are individual written video or picture posts on the 10 platforms that matter, that eat up the mass majority of attention, right? And they're nuanced. Shorts, for example, if we're giving a little love to our hosts, Shorts is interesting to me because unlike some of the other short form video platforms, YouTube is the second biggest search engine in the world. Number 2. And the amount of people that go and search things on there, and even with the rise of, you read the headlines of TikTok and Instagram search, there's still a real chasm. Those are fun headlines, and it's growing, but YouTube is a disproportionate number 2 search engine in the world. And when you make an individual short, every short I make from what I care about, I title more for search engine logic than I do almost, like sometimes my title makes no goddamn sense with the video I'm putting out, mainly because I'm so obsessed with, in 4 months, somebody's gonna search against this title and I'm gonna show up. And I think all of you understand that unlike the other short form video platforms, that shelf life to have that short form video in a shorts environment is dramatically longer than it would be in the alternatives. That goes back to what I'm saying about the A+ versus C- capabilities. If you're thinking about shorts exactly the same way that you're thinking about a Reels or a TikTok, you're now taking out some of the variable differences within them. Forget about demo and age, and more importantly, what I can definitely tell you as someone who's organically marketed in these platforms since 2006, the room you're in matters. Literally every sentence in your copy, depending on which platform you're on, I think this should be very common sense. If you're posting the same video on LinkedIn, that you're posting on Twitter, that you're posting on Facebook, that you're posting on TikTok, there should be some post-production, subtle, nuanced changes you make to the first, second headline, things of that nature. But at its bare minimum, the copy associated with that video should be incredibly different based on the room you're in. I mean, it's not super hard to say, hey, business travelers, as the opening line to a LinkedIn post that might be, something different that you would put on a shorts that might say, hey, college kids, but still have the same video, depending on that video. And so I find a huge, huge difference. And I wonder if Google, YouTube will talk about this today. There was something that happened years ago with Meta that I will never forget, which was, in a 2-day period, I was in the San Francisco office with brands, and then I was in the Austin office with brands. And everything that was coming out of Meta's mouth in San Francisco to Fortune 500 brands was completely different than what was coming out of their mouths in Austin for small DTC, small business brands. And I remember always believing that that was happening, but it was right there in front of my face in a 2-day period. Ironically, this is one of the first weeks in a long time that I'm going from San Francisco to Austin for different reasons, so it's fun to tell this story. But I remember that was the final nail in the coffin, and I would argue, and I've said this to my YouTube, Google friends, I think the platforms have to do a better job of telling Fortune 500 companies the truth. Because I think that they often struggle or complain about brands not moving fast enough, but I think if I could inspire anything, I want to inspire Google to tell these people the fucking truth. I think that Google does an atrocious job, including all the other platforms, in really telling the holding companies in the Fortune 500 the truth, because they're aware that their creative capabilities aren't there to actually get it done. But that's okay, AI is coming to put them all out of business anyway, and so that will be good. And so I think that's the conversation. The conversation is, does this room understand the history of advertising when everybody in radio copywriting made fun of the television people? Do we know that? Does this room know that in the late 50s and well into the 60s, if you worked in an ad firm and you worked on TV, you were the runt. You were the person that does social media today. You were the not as important. That video thing is not as classy as the written words that are read by a man on terrestrial radio. That was the pedestal. Do we understand that? Because this industry has an incredible capability of underestimating the current place where consumers' attention is, because they put, like every B2B company, they put their own money and capabilities on a pedestal, not where the actual consumer attention is. And so that's what we're sitting in right now at the highest levels, and the chasm is growing. And there's a very big elephant in the room, especially for CPG companies, because CPG companies consolidated over the last 50 years into all these big holding conglomerates, and they were able to win on distribution of both media and retail. And both of those things have been commoditized. The amount of brands every day, and all of you know it because all of you consumed it this weekend, the amount of brands that have gone from 0 to tens and hundreds of millions of dollars on just a Shorts, TikTok, Facebook, Meta, Google infrastructure on ads versus television, and on Shopify and Amazon versus having the scale to be able to even penetrate a test in a Walmart or a Kroger's or a Walgreens. So I'm just curious what everyone's waiting for. And I believe what everyone's waiting for is to go out of business. Because the history of the last 50 years of business has proven that if you hold on to yesterday and you over-romance tomorrow and you underestimate today, you will lose. And advertising is good at that. We romance about television still, and then we're infatuated with tomorrow. I had more conversations last year of people that wanted to spend $1 million on the metaverse than wanted to do day-to-day social creative properly. Literally. Brands are more interested in going to a place, and listen, I was Mr. NFT and Web3 and I still am, but metaverse was something different. I always ask the same question, like how many people are in it? There's 12 people in Sandbox. 12. And yet, brands were prepared to spend $1 million to build a Chanel store in there. And then over here, they're thrilled to spend $1 million on a photo shoot with a celebrity that does 900 other deals, so none of the audience actually believes they give a shit about the brand. And yet they have no investment or strategy or care about today. They completely mail in social, organic, metaverse all the way over here, print ads, billboards, all this stuff. And literally you audit their social channels and they're completely mailing it in. They're doing Vogue ads on Instagram, which is fine. And I'm all about aesthetics and the fucking grid, but it doesn't drive business. And I just don't understand where everyone's at with this. And so I believe, as a final statement for everyone in here, all my employees that are in here, everybody on the outside, Google, until everyone in this room understands as of this moment, organic social media creative is #1 most important thing in marketing today, they will continue to leave opportunity on the table. And I tell you, there's not an organization in the Fortune 5000 selling stuff that has organic social media as #1 on their list. Meanwhile, every business that's 5,001 down, it's the only thing they believe in. It's why they're growing. And so this is not genius, this is not hypothesis, this is definitely not horseshit, books written in 1991 on how brands grow and we write curriculum around this. This is 2024. By the way, day trading attention in 30 years will be stupid too. How brands grow in 1991 was profoundly right. Reach and frequency and messaging is right. I don't razz that. I don't razz the book. I razz all of you that still execute as if the book was right. In 2042, I'm gonna stand right here and be like, you fucking idiots still do social media? I mean it. Day trading attention means that you do not put anything on a pedestal. I have no romance to social, to Google, to Facebook, to TikTok, to myself, or anything I've done prior to my career. I care about today, right now, and what is overpriced and underpriced behavior to make the thing that I want to happen, happen. Period. Thank you. All right, who's got questions on that? Hey, brother.
Your team does a great job on organic social content for my brand.
Thank you.
And so you'll drive maybe 100 million impressions for us, and I'll tell that to my boss, the CMO, and he'll say, that's great, but I could spend maybe a couple $100,000 and buy those impressions.
He's wrong. You're buying potential reach, not actualized reach. The #1 reason I like social media organic views, and I don't believe we get full consumption of those views. Like when I see 1 million views, I'm like, ish. But way more ish than 1 million digital views that we buy in a fucking black box in a programmatic lake. He's wrong. The amount of, and you know, he knows he's wrong, and you know he's wrong, because you can feel the variable difference when a video gets 3 million views actually, versus when you look at your 40 million views that you bought on programmatic. So I think people that have the full funnel, where many other CPG brands have a struggle, is they don't sell DTC. They're reliant on a third-party seller, and so the reporting gets murky when you track it back. But no, you know, the actual reality of, let's say that, 800,000, let's amortize it to 500,000 that actually watched it. To get 500,000 humans to actually watch a 15-second, 9-second, 37-second video in buying in media is dramatically more expensive. So I think the biggest issue we have in our industry is the way we report consumption. I think in that scenario, the argument is, can you really buy that actual thing? What the only advantage social has over everything else, and this is why I like pre-roll YouTube in that 1 second, because of the lack of friction and the way it works, is social, the ads are integrated when it's organic into the actual experience in a way that is completely different than a television commercial or any other disruptive medium of ads. Right, my biggest concern as we move into CTV and all this other things, and even YouTube TV, notice how I put classic there, not YouTube TV, is humans don't like when you disrupt what they're actually watching if they know it's coming, and they will check out. And so, no, I think there's a massive difference between an organic piece of content that is backed behind AI algorithms that understand who wants to actually see it, and do people actually like it, versus forcing a buy that is an ad that is not contextual to where it's being distributed because it's being bought programmatic. You don't even know where it's showing up half the time. So I think there's a big difference in that consumption. You know, I really do.
Hey Gary.
Hey brother.
Obviously you set that up, as you always do, perfectly. I want to offer up for everyone, it's mindset. You just hit it on the head. If you don't sell direct to consumers and you're selling through big retailers and other things, the organization, many folks, right, they have that old thinking or old mentality. It takes quite a little bit of time to get them to think differently.
Not only that, it also means in that scenario that you have to look yourself in the mirror and realize your organization's a sales organization, not a marketing organization.
Exactly.
Right? Like when you look at the biggest brands in the world, sales, this is why, the most interesting battle in the world right now in media is the platforms that actually have attention, Google's, Meta's, TikTok's, versus the platforms that don't have the attention, retail media. Retail media has what Google has with search, with intent-based marketing, which is great. Like, I want to go buy popcorn, and Google and retail media can play that game. But think about what's happening when you're a sales organization coming next. The amount of money these retailers are going to extract out of all of you is insane. They have, unlike Google, which is remarkably effective, Walmart and Target have you buy, what do they call it, the balls, right? Because they sell 30 to 70% of your product. And when they say, I want your spend to go up 100% this year, you say, thank you very much. And then they're going to take that money and create private labels.
But you're right.
And then they're going to take that money and give it to up and coming brands that are actually doing organic social and paying for them to come in. Do you see what's happening in beauty? Literally, Sephora, Ulta, all these companies, they're literally charging more and more for the big beauty brands to get into their store, and taking that money and giving the little brands that are winning on Shorts and TikTok and Instagram money to come into their stores. Are you fucking kidding me? Anyway, go ahead, Joe.
No, just to continue. There you go. Set them up perfect. No, what's really interesting is there is hope. I can tell you there's hope.
I agree.
I sat in on the meeting with the big guy you mentioned, the big W.
Yep.
And it took 3 or 4 meetings to get the understanding of, we understand there's a huge trade budget, we understand we can all buy volume and do all of that, but how are you going to change the game? Because, no offense, I don't buy the product off the shelf, you don't, it's the consumers, right? So they're starting to see that and get that. They obviously have massive control, as you said, but I remember a little company called Sears, and I lived through that. I know executives that went over there and would say, you guys have no idea who this Jeff B guy is. And literally, it's going to happen to CPG companies for sure.
I think so. And I think the cool thing is, and this is why I'm so obsessed with social organic, the one thing that gets the attention of the biggest retailers in the world is if they believe you can drive new people into their store. Right? The reason they're taking big brands' money and giving it to little brands is they don't want those little brands that are the coolest to stay DTC. it gives people rationale to not go into their stores. If you do commercials, you must take very seriously pre-roll and mid-roll YouTube classic, but you must make totally different videos than the way you think about commercials.
If you do both, what happens when you do organic well, let's say on YouTube, and you buy ads?
Well, that to me is the ultimate, the thing that JT and I and Nick nerd about all the time of like, oh my God, there are small VC-backed brands and entrepreneurs, once in a blue moon somewhere else, whether a Fortune 500 or a PE-backed brand, that are starting to figure it out. They are literally having a single post in social organic go well organically and are putting millions of dollars. Can you imagine, like for everyone in this room coming up this game, we are now in the era where there are brands that are actually putting out an organic social media post. It does extremely well. Normally they get 5,000 views. This one gets 1 million. And they are taking and putting millions of dollars in amplification of that, not for performance, but for brand amplification, you know, like television. That is wild. Like that it's already in the pre-dawn, and I think that's gonna happen to a lot of people, so of course. And then obviously, if you take that organic piece of creative and slightly tweak it and make it performance oriented, it has a lot of capabilities to outperform your best CAC and LTV DTC ads. And so that's why I think organic's so important. You get 3 things out of it. When it goes well, because the back-end algos that Google and its competitors have on this is gonna outperform the best planner in the world. That just, humans don't beat computers like that. So you've got an organic piece of content, it over-indexes or goes viral, and now you have multiple options. You take that single piece of content and you convert it into a performance ad, because you've already got knowledge that there's creative affinity there. You just have to tweak a little bit of the wording and maybe the last card, or maybe put a banner at the bottom with a coupon code, performance. You do this new thing, which is like just bananas, that the hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue companies that haven't gone public or IPO yet or sold in an M&A deal, they're putting millions of dollars behind a single piece of organic because they know there's creative affirmation, and so they get massive brand. That's wild. And then number 3, what you get best of all, in my opinion, from crushing organic is consumer insights. When you have a video that gets 1 million views, the amount of qualitative feedback that you get, that you're able to read and actually get consumer insights. And then for us, a 4th thing happens with that. That piece of content and the qualitative feedback becomes the brief. If you don't want to do number 2 and amplify that piece of content, which we recommend, but you can also equally take that and that becomes the brief, not a brief you write to our strategy team. That advertising becomes the brief to doing a campaign predicated on those insights. We call that SICK, socially informed campaigns. This is logical, this is common sense. This is not corporate, this is not boardroom. This is consumer centric, and I highly recommend you get into it. Thank you.